Hi, my name is Gianna Garofalo, and the island I chose to do my midterm report on is, of course, the beautiful island of St. Martin. I'd first like to start off with some personal relevance to the island. This is a place that me and my family have vacationed multiple times, and it is a place that we love very dearly. We call it our home away from home. Um, we actually have a timeshare on the Dutch side of the island, right on the beach. It's beautiful, and we try to go there almost every year, every other year, if not every year. It has a lot of significance, relevance to my parents. They went on their honeymoon there and they absolutely fell in love with the island and decided that this is where they wanted to take their future family and make many more memories together. And that's exactly what they did. I'd also like to incorporate that through this presentation and creating it, I did, of course, have a lot of resources and research that I included into the presentation, but I also did try to include some of my personal experiences, my personal opinions, and just things that I've experienced and went through while living on the island. Not living on the island, but vacationing on the island, and things that I had experienced myself. So it was almost like a primary source. St. Martin has a very rich and interesting history, originally starting with the indigenous settlers, which are the Chiboney Indians that are a subgroup of the Arwaks. The Chiboney Indians were later defeated by the Carib Indian tribe, and the Caribs were brutal and to the Chiboneys and completely decimated them, enslaved and murdered all of them. So much to the point that when Europe began exploring the Caribbean, there were no traces of any Arawak Indians at all. So that really shows how they have completely been wiped off the island. Columbus did not land on this island during his venture, so it wasn't Spain's priority. And then later on in the 1600s, France and Dutch had a conflict of interest over the island because they both had wanted to conquer the island for similar reasons, mostly because of its closeness and proximity to their other islands, France's being Trinidad and Bermuda, while the Dutch wanted it for its proximity of New Amsterdam and Brazil. In 1633, though, the Spanish took control of the Dutch section of the island, hence ending the 8-Year War, which obviously went on for 8 years and ended with Spain's victory. But soon after, Spain realized that this island was not profitable at all and that they weren't really making the money that they had originally planned to. So they made the decision that this island was no longer worth fighting for and that there was no reason to continue spending money on it when it wasn't making any. So it allowed the Dutch to reconquer, kind of leading us to where we are today with the French having one side of the island while the Dutch having the other. Also, something else I'd like to really include is the connection of the class text silencing in the past. This is really ties back, I feel, perfectly with the Carib and the Chiboney Indians. This is because the Chiboney were basically killed and murdered on their island that they had discovered and left no trace at all, essentially silenced. Kind of going back to what Trollops had said and was so angry about and felt injustice about it is exactly what happened to the Chiboney Arawak Indians. So I feel like that's important to understand that that they had went through the same treatment and that their history is no longer existent just because they were completely decimated. Sociology of St. Martin is also quite interesting. This mostly ties back to the fact that the island is split in half, the French having the north side while the Dutch having the south. As you can see in the picture, the French is illustrated as green and the Dutch is illustrated as orange. Of course, there's a different language spoken in both. The French speaks French and the Dutch speaks English, although I feel like it is very important to note that both sides, the French and the Dutch, speak a good amount of English. This is based off of my personal experience, but I've never had any issue with any language barriers. Everyone on the island has been extremely friendly and extremely understanding of me speaking, and there's been no miscommunications whatsoever. Along with the different language barriers, there is also a differentiation in spelling. The French side spells Saint Martin S-A-I-N-T, and Martin, Martin, while the Dutch spells it Sint and Martin as Maarten. Of course, it is pronounced the same, but this kind of just goes back to show like the different in both sides of the island and kind of like how the people there live differently. Economics, I feel, was a pretty big part of the St. Martin in itself. It does have positive economics and also negative economics as well, which I discuss in the next slide, but this is mostly the positive economics, and it's mostly through tourism. St. Martin is a beautiful area with rich history, so it is a very popular vacation spot for people of North America and Europe. The island, the people living on the island is fluent in English, so there is not a huge language barrier, so people aren't hesitant coming to the island in fear that they may not be understood or communication may be difficult. So that's definitely a plus for the island. Along the coast, there's hotels and vacation spots that you can stay at to just experience the beautiful beaches of the island. But I feel like it is very important for me to mention that not only are big corporations such as resorts and big businesses of restaurants and hotels sort of only profiting off of the tourism, so are locals. And this can most clearly be seen based on my personal experience of men and women walking up and down the coast of the beach trying to sell jewelry or accessories or hair braidings and just sort of general items like that, which me and my family, we always take part in. As you can see, I did include pictures. The middle one is the most recent picture of me getting my hair braided from a local, and the one on the right is obviously me much younger in St. Martin also getting my hair braided. But this does really illustrate that like there are regular people just trying to make a livelihood, regular people that are entrepreneurs sort of just also benefiting off the economics of tourism. I also do feel like it's important to emphasize the economics of St. Martin and the negative effect that sometimes are upon it. And it's mostly because the geography of the island in itself, it is very prone to natural disasters. And originally speaking, many of the people on the island are living in poor conditions to begin with. So their houses aren't the most stable and their living conditions aren't really super sanitary. So when a hurricane comes, it has just made their situation 10 times worse. And they're extremely prone to hurricanes. And one of the biggest hurricanes hit the island was Hurricane Irma. And that was in 2017. And this left St. Martin in disrepair and debt because of the physical damages done by the storm. And this natural disaster left many people with nowhere to live, nowhere to call home, just living on the streets, which is a very sad situation to be in. I did include pictures before Irma and after Irma, and then just some examples of like the houses and sort of just what had happened to the island, and it looks devastating, and it left the island in a lot of debt. So they were spending a lot of money trying to repair their island because of all the physical damages. Lastly, I'd really like to get into the psychology and health. As a nursing major, I do feel like this is important to understand and research. Because St. Martin is a third world country, its accessibility to mental health resources are limited. Just because it's limited does not mean that there are none, but it is not easily accessible to everyone as it should be. The poverty level citizens do play a role because only the people that have enough money to have health care and or mental health are the ones receiving it. So the people who don't have as much money and as much resources aren't receiving the help that they deserve. I'd like to connect this back to the beautiful soul of Don Damian. And I do think that this was a really nice connection because Don Damian was a wealthy man who was in the hospital, and he was able to receive health care and treatment while in comparison to someone who probably couldn't receive health care and treatment. And it does show the dividing classes, and that wealthier people receive care while underprivileged people don't receive the correct care, especially in the healthcare field. So it kind of does show the divide between the economic economic statuses. I personally am going to be applying this into my future with my career in nursing. I do feel like it's important that I studied this and kind of understood and were able to research St. Martin's healthcare systems and sort of how they had functioned and how people are being treated on the island and the accessibility they have in that. And I'm going to bring that into my current job and try to allow me to tolerate and have more compassion for those that I'm treating, and because I do know that like other people in the world aren't as fortunate. And tying back into fortunate, I do feel like this project, like personal applications that I'm going to bring away from this research of St. Martin, are extensive and will last me forever, my whole life. It was a real eye opener to other people and how they live everyday life. I feel blessed that I'm not living in an area that is hit by devastating hurricanes, and it really showed me that people are less fortunate, and that really made me count my blessings in essence. This motivated me to give back to others less fortunate than me, especially those affected by natural disasters because of what had happened to St. Martin. Through my research, I did find a lot of programs that helped nations and islands just like St. Martin and St. Martin, including St. Martin, some of them being Red Cross and Habitat for Humanity. And these are like programs that give back. Habitat for Humanity builds houses for people that natural disasters have their houses ripped out, or people who just don't have enough money to have a house. So Habitat for Humanity helps those people, and that's something I really want to do, especially after doing this project. It really fueled a fire in me to kind of go make change, because it is an island that I love, and I do know that I don't want to see it in disrepair any longer. So it has really motivated me to want to make a change. And of course, here's my works cited page. I've only used uh, an internet source of about an article about St. Martin, and the two class sources, The Beautiful Soul of Don Damian and Silencing the Past.